Okay, welcome back, everybody. On this episode of Positive Impact Podcast, we're going to go a little bit different direction. I'm going to use the next couple podcasts to just tell some funny-ass stories that have happened to me in my life, some different events that have led me to where I am today. Just a little parental advisory on some of these episodes. There's going to be cursing. So if you have young people listening to it, I cannot tell these stories and convey myself and like my personality without carefully placed F words woven through the story. So if you have young people listening, there will be profanity in these stories. There won't be lewd talk or degrading talk to women, but there will be the F word, there'll be some cursing. So, but I have to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to sound like it's me telling a story. So, this episode's story is the camper story. And in order to get to the camper itself, at the heart of the camper story, we have to talk about my experiences camping. I have my wife Anna here with me. She has heard most of these stories, but it's just funnier to tell these stories to somebody else. And she's got a good sense of humor, so she'll find them funny again for the 100th time. So, growing up for me and my brother and my sister and my parents, we were not the family who took... we didn't go to the beach. We didn't go to the resort. We didn't go to foreign countries. We went camping, and we went to Shenango Rec Area. We went to Palmatooning, went to Tuttle Point, and we camped. And when I say we camped, I don't mean like what you think of camping today, like Deep Creek, Maryland, and renting a cabin and having a boat at the jetty. No. I mean camp like...
There's no camper involved.
No, I mean camp like the survivors of World War I would consider life in the trenches, camping. Like fucking army tent, big ass jug of water, and when that ran out, it wasn't that there wasn't more water. There was more water 100 feet away at the tap. But when that 5 gallons of water ran out, that was it. You saw how long the human body could go without water. Dishes didn't get washed and shit like that. So that's the camping I mean. So, we would typically every summer go camping somewhere. Shenango, Palmatooning. And my dad had this giant green army tent that, if you're someone who camps, then every year we would drag it out into the yard a week before we would camp, and you'd take the broom and you'd sweep off the 6,000 or 7,000 moths that would be dead. You would find the routine pile of mouse shit, and you'd air it out just from it being wrapped up. So we would do that. And then, the Camp Dry or the waterproofing spray would come out. We'd put it all up, and then we would just...
Camp Dry. I haven't heard that in a long time. Mm-hmm.
And then we would just fucking soak this thing with Camp Dry. I mean, soaked. It would change colors. It would have so much of this shit in it. So, and then you'd leave it set up for a couple days, and I always thought it was funny because, like, my dad would say, hey, if you and your brother want to sleep out here tonight... you can. And I'm like, you mean after you sprayed it with the flammable chemicals? Like, let's let it dry out for a day and then we'll give it a go. But he'd be like, hey, you and your brother could sleep out here if you want.
Like it was some kind of treat.
Yeah, like it was a big treat, and it was like, I'm woozy from the Camp Dry fumes, and I was like, we'll pass tonight. So we let it air out in the yard for a couple days. We'd roll it back up, and we would start the 7,000 item checklist of camping necessities, the checklist. And it's a funny perspective on this because I talked to my mom the other day, and like you and my mother's perspective on camping is very different than like me and Shawnee and my dad and probably my brother's perspective on camping, because we didn't do none of this shit. Like once the tent was set up, we were done.
Right.
Like the girls, they got to do meal prep, and it's not meal prep like you're at the house. It's meal prep as if you're on the frontier and you've just just claimed your parcel of land and you have the Dutch oven out there with the, the mutton and the fucking baked beans and you're cooking on the prairie. Like that kind of meal prep. And we were just done, So to hear my mom's perspective on it is hilarious. So, we start the checklist and we start to meticulously pack, the 82 Ford F-150 that was black, that had the aluminum, not black aluminum cluttered aluminum cover on the back, the cap. Or as people our age and maybe a little older would call it, the crew cab. That's a crew cab. There was no crew cabs back then. Your little ass got in the cab of the truck, no seatbelts, no shit. You were on top of all the camping shit, and you just bounced around.
You mean in the bed of the truck?
The bed of the truck.
Yeah.
You'd slam into shit, and you might have that little window that you could like slide open. But if the vehicle maybe had air conditioning, which ours didn't, you weren't sliding that open because you weren't giving away the AC. So we load the truck up, we load the bags up, we hear everybody talk about the 7 reasons why let's not go camping, let's just do something else, let's go to the beach, let's make this the year that we do that. My dad was not hearing that shit. We were going camping because that's what we did. So, typically, like I said, we would go to Pymatuning, and the Skanu was on the top of the truck. Okay, not a canoe, a Skanu. Are you familiar with the difference between a Skanu and a canoe?
Absolutely not. I've heard you say that many times, and I did not know the difference.
Canoe is like your typical, like what you see rowing, Deliverance,
right.
Down the river. And a Skanu, a little wider, a little longer, more stable in the water, had a little bit different supporting on the bottom of it, but it had like a transom on the back. It almost had a flat back, so you could put a little motor on there.
Oh, right.
You could put a motor on there.
If you chose
We didn't have a motor to put on there, but you could put one on there. Nevertheless, Skanu goes on top. I think we had some like maybe rolled up carpet padding underneath it to protect the aluminum cap and the truck, and away we go off into the Frontier or Pymatuning State Park. And so, you get there and we get all the shit out. We get the tent out, and this is where the infighting begins. Once you step out of the vehicle onto the ground, this is where the family separation starts. You would think this is where it comes together. No. If you're a tent camper, Frontier style, this is where the shit comes apart, because everybody has their own idea of how you put the tent together. And everyone knows that the father, his way is the best way. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. And I could tell you sometimes it's wrong because we had a screened-in tent that we put up inside out, following the old man's directive. But nevertheless, my dad, he would do how many times I set this tent up? So it was like, it's his way. So we start setting the tent up. Everybody had a different job. You know what I mean? And it just seemed less of a vacation and more of some sort of a labor camp for like the first 90 minutes, where it was, hey, go fill up the water, get a string going for the towels, let's get the Skanu off the top, let's get the camp stove out, the lantern out. You notice I'm not saying air mattress. No air mattress for Clan Kirkland. It was tarp went under the tent, and it was just the bottom of the tent. Maybe like a styrofoam pad or something like that. Typically not, though. So, and this is every time we go camping. Every time.
There was no upgrading.
Oh, no upgrading. So we get that all set up, and then, we had our bikes, so it was fun. You had your bikes. You could go ride bikes. Probably had like a basketball, frisbee, maybe other people had football or baseball gloves, but you always had something to do. And this was the point when the daydreaming started for, young Sean Kirkland of greater things from my camping experience. I'm there, and my brother and I are, playing in the fucking mud puddle on the side of the road as as the campers come in on a Friday, you know, and you see these trucks pull past with campers on them. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, a camper.
Someday.
And, you know, this is like 84, 85. So, you know, it's not like the campers now, like where every fucking thing pops out. The whole goddamn thing pops out. It fucking opens up like a transformer, and it's got a hot tub and shit in it, and all kind of. It's got a fucking dog grooming kennel in it. It's got everything. So, you know, there I am playing in my mud puddle on the side of the road with my fucking pogo stick or my that thing that went around your ankle that all you did was skip over it. Skip it. And all I did was count how many times you skipped over it. And,
one of my favorite toys.
You know, in come the cars, you know, the station wagons with the fellow tenters, and, you know, in the back seat would be the children with just that long look in their face, similar to how we look. Like, here we go. Another week of camping in the tent. And then you see the campers come in. It didn't matter what kind, pop up, didn't fucking matter. Right? RV. Oh, if you saw a fucking RV, it was like the Rockefellers were coming into town. It was like the Buells or the Carnegies were camping at the campground. You were like, oh my God, you drive that camper. And that's when the dreaming of having a camper started. And I would ask my dad from time to time, I'd say, Dad, we should get a camper. We should get a camper. He'd be like, what do we need a camper for? And he'd just motion, not with his hand, but just with his like with his fucking head and his face. He just motioned towards the tent. And you look over there and you see this army tent and you're like, yeah, why would we want a camper? I mean, you wake up every morning in the tent and it's fucking raining from the ceiling from the condensation because we put so much goddamn camp dry on it that there was nowhere for the humidity and condensation to go. So it just fell back on you in the middle of the night. You're fucking soaking wet when you woke up. It's like you should have slept in a goddamn wetsuit. And it's like, why would I want a camper? And every, you know, year after year, it's, hey, Dad, let's get a camper. No. Those are too expensive. We don't need a camper. The only time we ever did have a camper, we actually did have a camper one time. We rented a motorhome, drivable camper. One of these ones like the Rockefellers.
When you went to the beach.
And we went with the neighbors. Because, listen, we weren't renting it on our own. Those shits were expensive. So we rented one and we went to the beach with the neighbors. And it was like this 16-hour drive from hell. And I remember talking to my mom about this trip the other day, and like, it was her vacation too, and all she wanted to do
was read her book
and go out to dinner. She just wanted to go out to dinner one goddamn night. And my dad never wanted to go to fucking dinner. Never wanted to go to dinner. And the other problem is we couldn't rent a fucking car because we didn't have a credit card. Because back then, everybody didn't have fucking credit cards. Nowadays, a 10-year-old has a fucking credit card. But back then, you didn't have a credit card. So we didn't have a credit card. The neighbors didn't have a credit card. So we'd have to take the whole fucking vacation spot with us if we wanted to go to dinner. It wasn't happening, you know. So that was our one camper experience, was that, you know. But as I get older, I'm like, I want a camper, you know. I'm in the service, and you know, we're taking these like hikes and shit when we go to these beautiful places like Perth, Australia, you know, British Columbia, and we're out in the nature and get out of the service and we come home and we get married, we have Shawnee, and it's like, now it's my turn to lead the family into the great void of camping. And it's, what's it going to be? Is it going to be the Green Army tent? You know, am I going to pass on this dream of wanting a camper to my son, and then maybe he'll fulfill it? And nay, I say. I wasn't going to do that. So the first time we went, we actually stayed in, they rented these little, you remember those little...
Oh, it was like a tiny shed.
It was a shed.
It was a shed.
It was a shed.
Like a pre-built shed.
Yeah.
And there was absolutely nothing in it except a window.
A window. Very poor ventilation.
So... Did we take an air mattress?
Oh, yeah, took an air mattress.
We took an air mattress.
We hit the lottery. We had an air mattress.
And we rented one of... They should still have those.
Yeah, they
should
don't.
Really still
I feel like they don't.
They had maybe like 4 or 6 of them at the campground. And we rented one of those, and we had an air mattress. We should have taken about 5 fans.
Yeah.
But we did not.
We did not.
one window for ventilation.
But
But it was great.
But I feel
we
like
never wanted to leave.
I feel like they don't have them anymore because some shit went down and maybe somebody suffocated in one. Maybe somebody's
no.
maybe maybe dehydration set in. Something. I feel like it was a safety reason that they got rid of them. So we have that camping experience, and it's
It was great. It was our
yeah,
first
it was great.
one.
It was super. It was great. So we wanted to do it again, and we're like, we're gonna rent one of those things again. Well, you couldn't rent them again, so we're like, oh, shit, what do we do? I'm at Wally World eyeing up tents. I'm like, oh man, and this is a regression at this point because even if you stay in this like hot box. A tent is fucking regression from the hot box. So I'm at Walmart and I'm looking at fucking tents and I'm like, oh man. So then we hear about the fundraiser.
Yes.
There was a local fire department, volunteer fire department, that as a fundraiser, and listen, this is a great idea. So if you're
Spread
someone,
the word.
Yeah.
Everybody should do this
like
in their towns.
if you're a volunteer,
BioLink.
or you're somebody looking to make extra money as a township or like a borough or a commonwealth or something like that, the volunteer fire department in the area where the campground was, they had purchased some like travel trailers, like some not drive behind RVs, but some campers, and you could rent them, and you could tell them your spot that you had rented at the local campground, and they would deliver it, they would set it up, and they would even give you a delivery of firewood, which was terrific. Like if you were someone who didn't have all that stuff, it was great because you showed up with your car full of shit and you unloaded it in there, had a great time with it, and when you were done, you just packed up your car and you went. So we were like, yeah, this is fantastic. We're going to do this. If you remember, my sister and them were there.
Yeah,
so
they had their camper at
Yeah.
the campsite right next to it.
So we
got
shared a
there.
spot with them. So we knew some people up there, and it was great. And I'm thinking,
We should get a camper.
yeah. And so the nightmares of me waking up to like the Chinese water torture of condensation on my head are flashing back to me like I need to have a camper. Like this is too good to be true, but I want my own camper. Like I'm picturing little Sean with his fucking jams on and his net shirt playing in the mud puddle. My brother had a little
By the way, that's a nod to my older brother,
Yeah.
Gene. Gene, if you're listening to this,
We saw the
we
pictures,
went to
Gene.
Washington,
We
D.C.,
saw the
and we
pictures.
all got jams.
Yeah, the family
That was your outfit.
family vacation gift of jams. And so I'm picturing me and my brother there in the mud puddle on the side of the road as the campers are coming in up at Pymatooning, and my brother had a rat tail. I'm pretty sure he had a rat tail. We had matching glasses,
sure did.
shitty eyes. We had like last year's Converse because we were big on layaway in the Kirkland house. It was
At Hills.
It was
big
Listen,
at Hills.
huge at Hills.
Huge layaway.
So, there we are, and I'm looking at my Skip-Boo tracker or whatever, Skip It tracker, and I'm in this camper that we rented, and I'm thinking of this, and I'm like, there's no going back. I'm not going backwards. I'm the man of the house now. There's no going backwards. So we do this. I think we had done that, twice, I believe we had done that. And we go back a third time. They're not doing it anymore. Something had happened. I think there was maybe a change of leadership at the volunteer fire department, and kaput.
They sold them off. Yeah.
Yeah, they had an auction, and they had fucking sold them off. And we had even considered buying one during the auction. We just couldn't make it happen. So now I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like, what kind of father, what kind of head of the household am I? I've taken my family to the camping fucking mountaintop. We've come from a tent to a hot box to a rented camper. And now that's all been pulled out from under our feet. I'm picturing my son Shawnee with the rat tail and the Skip It in the puddle with fucking jukebox up the street. Tyler Mel, and it's all these things are going through my mind, and I'm like, no, this can't happen. So I'm like, we're gonna get a camper. Like I talked to Anna, we're like, hey, she liked camping. She didn't grow up camping, and she was like, yeah, I liked it. I liked having the camper. Let's look at campers. My son's over the moon about it. But more importantly, my dad's all in. Because like my dad now is like, he's going to live the camper life and he's going to live it with me. And listen, as a son, if you can give that thing to your father, that, you know, you grow up with the Green Army tent. And I'm sure when I was, you know, when we were younger, that, you know, there was, I'm sure, aspirations for my father to want a camper, but we just couldn't make it happen. You know, times were different. And I'm like, I can give this to my dad. Like, it's success for the family. It's success for my dad. And it's like, oh my God, I'll be like father of the fucking year, son of the year, husband of the year. So we start looking. And we find a camper about, 45 minutes away. Find a camper.
Where we bought it in Elwood City?
Yeah, we find this camper. At the time, it was Clem's RV. It was about an hour away. And it was perfect. It wasn't too big. It was 22 foot, had a bunkhouse for my son's friends to sleep in. Perfect size.
I'm going to interrupt you. It was very big. It was brand new. I thought we were going to get, I don't know, a little used camper. We looked at used ones. Then I was like, let's just get a small one. But in all seriousness, my husband is 6'2". Our son was growing at exponential rates. He is now 6'4", 6'5". And basically my husband just went into one of the smaller ones and could just turn around in it and wasn't very comfortable. So we did
how do you
splurge.
shit in that?
I mean, we did splurge.
How do you shit in that thing? You know what I mean?
There's a toilet.
Well, yeah, there's a toilet in it, but how do I shit in that thing? 2:00 in the morning, we got the park rangers coming to get the jaws of life.
Size for me, for most people.
Cut me out of the fucking shit house in the camper because it's too small.
So we did splurge and get a big.
Yeah.
Nice
so,
camper.
You know, we sign on a dotted line, and like I have the truck that'll pull it. I get the brake control installed on the truck, and if like any guy that's got a truck that doesn't have brake control, you're not a man. You're not a man unless you have fucking brake control on your truck. Even if you don't have something to pull, if you don't have brake control, you're not shit. It's like I have a truck now. I have shit to pull it with that I need brake control, but I was like, I need a truck with brake control, and the guy at the dealership's like, oh, do you have a camper? I'm like, no. But I had it once and I need it again. What happens if I have to pull somebody's camper? I have to pull something else. So brake control, and we get all that stuff installed. So now it comes time that, okay, we have this camper. The dream has come true. I've radioed ahead on the battlefield to my father. Dad, we got the camper. It's happening. Oh, man, he's excited. My son's over the moon. He's telling his buddies already, we're going camping. Daddy's taking us camping. You know, so come true. Well, then I go pick this fucker up. And I've pulled U-Hauls before and, like, boats, but never a camper. And now I think back to being in that mud puddle with my rat tail sporting brother, with the fake jams on, with the net shirts, and now I know why. Like always when the dad was driving, it was never like this look of enjoyment. It was like this look as if you're on a plane, and the stewardess comes up to you so politely, and she goes, "Excuse me, honey, we're gonna need you to come land the plane for us." And like you get behind the controls. That's what the guys look like driving the campers. Because I hook up to the camper. The guy shows me how to hook up.
We drove it home that day.
Oh, yeah.
When we bought it.
Yeah.
We took it home right there.
You know, I had to have brake control on the fucking truck. Didn't have any idea how to use it. Didn't have any idea how to fucking set it. So just a mere tap of the brakes and everything locks up. The camper's dragging me all over the place. So we hook onto this thing. And my dad, who is a career truck driver, right? So my dad, who's a career truck driver, gives me the greatest pieces of advice for anybody whoever has to haul anything or tow it behind your truck or anything like that. He said, listen, Sean, just don't look back. He goes, it's back there.
Back there.
Just don't look back. Just drive
like
out the
front. Normally
drive. Yeah, drive out the front window. Don't look back, he says. Well, we pull out of Clem's RV, and I look back. And I continue to look back because this thing is fucking swaying and it's creaking. And it was like I was pulling the fucking Sears Tower behind the truck. That's what it seemed like. It felt like I was pulling like a tractor, like a trailer behind the truck. And every time I got to a red light, I was just praying to Christ that it was red so that I could stop and gather my thoughts, tighten my asshole up again, and get ready for the turn. Because all I'm thinking of, I'm just going to sideswipe some shit. You know what I mean?
And now this was, keep in mind, this place was a little over an hour away just driving there in a truck. So on the way home, when you're not cruising along in your truck and you're pulling
10-hour drive
for the first time.
10 hours.
It's a good like 2 hours home.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get to Chicago before I get home from Elwood City. So we're on our way home, and the brake control is real touchy. I'm just, I don't, not someone who really suffers from anxiety, but I'm fucking sweaty. My heart's racing. I'm very short with everybody in the car, very snippy with everybody in the car. And, we end up we get this thing back home, and it's like time to pull it in the driveway. My nerves are so shot, I can't even fucking try it. So thank God I live on a corner. So I pull it on the side of the house on the corner. I'm blocking the whole fucking street. I'm not far enough over. I'm blocking the whole street. I jump out of the goddamn car like it's on fire because I just have to get out at this point. And I reassess. I'm like, holy shit. Like, I wanted this camper ever since I was a little kid playing in the mud puddle, but now I have this camper, and like it was a whole thing, me driving this thing home. And I'm like, signing the paperwork, I got visions of Williamsport in the Little League World Series. I got visions out of fucking Rocky Mountains and shit, and I couldn't even make it home from Elwood City. So I set out on this quest that I'm going to practice and I'm going to get great at it. And so it's still hooked up to the truck. I'm reading the manual on the brake control. So I'm like, I live in like a private community. It's certainly not a gated community, but at my house borders are like a development, so that there's not a lot of traffic. And I'm like, I just drive around a block. There's not a ton of traffic. I'll drive around a block. I'll back it in a few times. I'll get the brake control, under control. And so I'm driving around a block, and like I set the brake control too light, and the camper shoves the fucking truck through the stop sign. Then I set it too heavy, and it's like squealing fucking. I'm all over the place. I tried to back it into your parents' house. In the yard, I almost took out the utility fucking pole, the mailbox. All the neighbors are out. There's cars trying to get down the street. I'm like, to hell with it. I pull out. I'm heading for home. I end up getting it in our driveway, and it's like jackknife like a bastard. I'm like, that's as straight as it's gonna fucking get. So we ended up going camping very shortly thereafter.
So seeing all of this happen, the experience coming home from Elwood City and then the riding around the block, you didn't
do much to soothe me on the way home from Elwood City. There wasn't a lot of like talking me off the ledge going on.
I feel like there was, but I feel like you were just seeing red. Like you put up a brick wall and nothing. You weren't hearing anything that Shawnee and I were saying to you.
It wasn't me seeing red. It was a real moment of vulnerability,
right? Where
I needed someone to save me.
I feel like I was definitely talking to you. You just couldn't hear me. So I saw all of this happen, and so our very first camping trip with the camper, I decided we're going to go to Pymatuning Campground in Jamestown.
Yeah.
And although it's almost an hour away, the key here was at the campground there, I was able to get a pull-through site.
Yes.
That was key. Instead of having one that you needed to back into, you were able to pull in one side, and when you were done and left, you just pulled right out the other side and left. There was no back. I was helping the situation
because you saw the camper and the truck in the driveway, and it was shaped like a fucking L, and you were like, I can't do this.
So I got a pull through side.
Yeah. So and that was a great camping trip. That first camping trip was great.
But we get there and we pull in.
Yeah.
And for 10 minutes, I don't know if you were having some kind of inner conversation with yourself, like, I can't believe my wife had to get a pull through site for me.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you truly didn't like the site, but it was like very muddy and just like you weren't happy with that site.
Wasn't.
So you had me go down to the, kiosk.
Yeah.
To talk to the ranger.
Right.
And see if we could switch campsites.
Right.
And you picked one out that was right up by the water, that was near that site, which was a back-in one. And
site.
we changed. We didn't even use the pull-in site.
Right.
We went and got a different one instead right away.
And hindsight being what it is, being 2020, guys, when your wife or your woman does something like that, just shut the fuck up and let it happen, man. If it's muddy, just shut up and let it happen. I'm like,
wasn't that a great idea? I got a pull through site.
I knew it was a great idea.
But your ego was probably feeling pressure. Like, why did we have to get a pull through site? I could go pull into that one instead and back it in.
Because you know what, like every other guy that has brake control on his truck and has a camper thinks of the fucking sad sack that pulls into a pull through site. You know what they think? Because I'll tell you what I think. What a punk. What a fucking punk. Look at this rookie.
Yeah, like my son's watching me.
Yeah.
And why can't I go back my
I saw the other people looking at us.
Felt it.
When we pulled into the pull-through site, I saw all these people that drove past me in the mud puddle when I was a kid. They were there again.
Oh, haunting you.
They were just in the faces of other meager people camping, and they were looking at me like, you waited all this time to have your dream, and you got a fucking pull through site. You know what I mean? And it was like, I was ashamed of myself.
You couldn't take it. You were like, we're changing this campsite. We're going over there.
What a fucking mistake. So we get the back end site, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Shawnee. My son's in the back. I was like, you watch this. You watch Daddy back this in. And for some reason, I thought, well, because my dad was a career truck driver, that I was going to be hot shit at backing something in. I should have let my dad, who didn't even have a driver's license at this point, I should have let him back it in. Because I knew I had made a vital mistake when I got to the point where you pull past the back your shit in spot and it's time to put it in reverse. Like, I realized when it was time to shift it out of drive into reverse that I had made a mistake, because I remembered the 90-degree angle that I had at it in the driveway. And I thought, what's going to be more fucking embarrassing? Me having this thing jackknifed with nowhere to go, or just taking my medicine and using the pull-through site and having 30 minutes of judgment.
Till we got good at this, right?
Well, listen, guys.
No, it'd have been a week of judgment. You would have been thinking about it the whole time we were there.
Well, listen, so we pull in, and I'm like, all right, honey, go ahead and get out, go in the spot, and then I'm going to start backing it in. Tell me when I'm in the back of the spot. Tell me if I'm square, like kind of guide me into the spot. And the spot, like where the spot and the road met, it was like a little crowned, like it wasn't like perfectly flat. So like when the camper wheels got past that crown, and it like went downhill a little bit, and I couldn't really see her back there. So I'm like backing it up, and she's like, I can hear her, and she's like, no, this way, but I can't see her. And I'm like, at first I'm like, well, which way? And she's like, this way, and I can't see her. And I'm like, I can't see you. Get somewhere where I can see you. And she's like, I am somewhere you could see me. So now the infighting starts again. Remember the infighting from when we camped in the big green fucking army tent the second your feet hit the ground? The infighting, the family being ripped apart is all happening all over again. And we are, it is at this point a pride tug of war between me being willing to accept directions and fly blind here in this camper because I can't see her back there. And she just keeps saying, well, I don't understand what you mean. You can't see me back here. and I just couldn't see her. And the camper's not straight. I'm like, she's like, no, it's not straight. It's not far enough back. You need to come back more. Oh, it's really crooked. Pull back forward. And everyone's watching. I mean, at this point, I think to myself, somebody's going to come down.
You want me to help you out, buddy?
Because what did I always say after I got the hang of it? Somebody would pull their camper into the spot, and I'm like, honey, I better go down here and fucking back this in for this guy. I don't
He
want
doesn't know what he's doing.
I don't want his wife to be ashamed of him, But like the whole time, my wife is standing back there giving me directions, and I know in her head she's thinking, "What in the fuck is he doing?"
No, see, I don't even remember that part. So
I
this
do.
must be fully ingrained in your head, and you made it way worse than we saw you being.
It was bad.
Because like Shawnee and I weren't feeling that way about you. It was your inner, not your inner rage, inner conflict that you were having.
It was horse shit. That first time back in the camper room was horse shit. And I couldn't see. I like, you want it to be perfect. It's not perfect. The shit's all over the place. And I remember finally getting it in park, and I don't think it was like straight anyway, but I remember getting it in park, and I shut the truck off, and I had to just like take a moment when I got out, like to decompress, because it was like my hands were cramped up. I couldn't even open them. Like, I saw our whole family dynamic just flash before my eyes. I was like, oh my God, that's it. It was just over. And, as our camping adventures went on, I got better at it, and we got like relatively good at it, and then,
you would always say, first shot. Look at that.
First shot. We get a first shot, and I'd back it in. When I brought it home, I'd back into the driveway, and I'd see guys go by in their trucks, and I'd tell myself on my head, that guy's probably thinking, what a bad motherfucker he is. And that's not what they were saying. What they were saying was, hurry up and get that camper pulled in the driveway. You're blocking the street. But in my mind, I heard, this is the sexiest guy I've ever seen in my life.
Man, that guy can
That guy
trailer.
is so BA. I want him to come over to the house and just hang out with me. Like, just, can you come raise my kids? Like, look how you back that camper in. And the camper served us great. My dad had a wonderful time in the camper, camping. I was able to fulfill that dream for him. And my son had a great time. All his friends had a great time. I had gone from getting rained on in a big green army tent and the hot box and the renting a camper to having my own camper, and our family really mastering camping, like
we did,
like mastering it and having just a great time at it. And the full circle of that, as we kind of close this camper story out, is our family later bought a hunting camp up in the woods, and it was time to sell the camper. My son was getting older. We weren't using it as much, and it was time to sell the camper. And the people that we ended up selling the camper to, they offered a little less than we were asking, but
they looked just like our family.
They did.
From 10, 15 years before.
They did, 100%. When they showed up, I mean, they had the stars in their eyes, and they were just happy as could be.
They had one little, maybe 7-ish-year-old kid.
Yeah,
just like
they had a little girl, and she had like some mobility issues, and they put her in the camper, and she was able to move around really good, and it just like warmed my heart, and I'm like, you guys need to have this camper, But the best part about it is like when they came to pick it up, this guy's having all kind of trouble pulling it out of the cab, all kind of trouble, right? And I'm thinking, I got one last fucking shot at this. So I go out there, and he rolls down the passenger window. His wife's in the passenger seat, and she had to look like you looked when we were coming back from Elwood City. The daughter's in the back, and she's just like terrified, like, no, Daddy, no. And he's got the rage in his eye, and I put my arm on the door where the door jamb, like where the window comes down, and I lean in there, and I just look at this guy. And like, there's some of my family at the camp, and I look at him and I go, hey, buddy, you need me to do this for you? just because it wasn't going to go full circle unless I was like, you want me to do this for you? And obviously he said no, because I would have said no, and he was able to get the thing out of there. And I often spend time thinking about the memories that we had in the camper.
Oh, it was so great.
The things that, I could do for my dad in the camper, and hopefully the memories that these people had in the camper. And the reason I wanted to tell that story was because, this is, we're trying to be positive and we're trying to have a great time. And listen, sometimes there's stress involved, and sometimes there's disagreement involved. And, sometimes the dream takes a while. This instant gratification. Sometimes, if you got to wait for something and you got to hope for something and you just let it happen naturally, when you finally do get it, like even the anxiety and the stress of backing that camper in and taking it through the construction sites and almost hitting the fucking construction barrels, all that stuff is worth it, because I waited so long for it, and I knew what a good time you would have, what a good time my dad would have, and Shawnee and my mom and Tyler and all Shawnee's friends and all of our family. And we did. And I just think, from where I started from, the Green Army tent in the back of in the crew cab Ford F-150 to having a beautiful truck and a beautiful camper is just, it's hard work, it's determination, it's a wife having your back and believing, that this is the best thing for the family, and signing off on a camper that's fucking way bigger than you originally thought you were going to buy. And that's what it's about. It's about the memories, it's about the good times, and it's about hard work paying off. So, for me and for Sweetie Pie over there, and for everybody who had a good memory in the camper, or in the Green Army tent, or in the puddle of mud with a rat tail and some jams on, or if you're somebody who thinks maybe camping is for you, trust me, camping is for you, because camping is you and the people that you love, and you finding ways to entertain one another, to make each other laugh, to be competitive, to be leisurely, and it's just all on you. And if you can do that for 3-4 days, sitting around a campfire playing cards, then you got what it takes, and you're one of the good ones, and you're one of the happy ones, and you're one of the ones that we want spreading kindness. So for Anna and I and Positive Impact Podcast, next episode is going to be the boat story. The boat story is a pretty popular one. It's fucking madness. It's just madness. But hey, from us here at Positive Impact Podcast, choose kindness, and be good to one another. Sweetie Pie and Sean, what do you got?
Let's go buy a camper.
Let's go buy another fucking camper.
I need a camper.
Break control. All right, guys.
One.
Hey, everybody, listen. Love you. Peace.